تلویزیون بهار تلویزیون مردمی که شامل برنامه‌های هنری، فرهنگی، اجتماعی، سیاسی، ورزشی و موضوعات داغ روز می باشد. پس تلویزیون بهار را دنبال کنید.
بهار زموږ د هېواد ټولو فرهنګي، سیاسي او ټولنیزو څیرو ته د ملاتړ بلنه ورکوي.
Again, I hope everyone enjoyed that song. It's very beautiful, and it comes from a Swedish singer who worked with one of our greatest Afghan musicians. So again, today we'll be with intellectual student, teacher Masood Sahak. So Assalamu alaikum Masood, how are you doing today?
Alaikum salam, I'm doing great. How about you?
Good. I'm so happy and thankful that you took the time to be on my show. I know in Sweden right now it's like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, so everyone really appreciates the time that you're taking with us today.
I would always be ready to share something if people benefits that. So that's not a problem. It's my pleasure.
Yes, amazing. So let me go ahead and just share a little bit of information that we have for you. So our special guest, you're a private tutor of chemistry and math. You currently graduated from economics, and right now you want to progress and start your master's in mathematics. But yeah, go ahead and tell me a little bit more about, your education and your background.
My name is Masood, and my surname is Sahar. I am Afghan. I have studied primary and secondary, everything in Afghanistan. One of the best teachers. Most people ask me, especially in Europe, why you teach chemistry or math, and how you know more when it comes to these things. Because mostly in Europe, the level of math is a bit low compared to Asia. That's why maybe it's stereotype in America also that Asians are good in math. The story behind this is my teacher, one of the greatest teacher of Afghanistan. His name is Qaisra bin Qarzi. I was one of his students, and of course, he was one of the best teacher, and that was the result that he could teach us very well, and he motivated me so I can teach other people, and I can use his technique and his skills when it comes to mathematics and chemistry. That's the reason that I teach chemistry and math on my free time as a private tutor and on some private sectors. And when it comes to economy, from childhood, everyone think economically when it comes to their private life or their social life. So that was the reason behind economy.
Great. Let me go ahead and share the second slide with a little bit more information. So right now you're currently in Sweden. Where are you attending university, and how has, studying both in Afghanistan and Sweden changed your perspectives on education and economy?
Well, of course, it's a rarest opportunity for Afghans because a scholarship in Afghanistan, it is very tough. And you must be really educated, you must be very smart, and you must update yourself to information so you can get a scholarship. And European scholarship, it is very hard, like 1 among thousands or 2 among thousands can get that. And you must pass a lot of process for that. By that I mean many exams, and it's not that easy as it's in Europe or it's in America, but I was always a curious student, and I do looking after challenge in my life, and most of my life I have faced a lot of challenge, and I do appreciate that, and I do want to face other challenge also. So that was the reason that I say I better do my master in math, because I have studied individually a lot with myself, and I have talked with different teachers, university teachers, and after sharing my knowledge with them, different perspective of math, they appreciate it, and they told me that it will be really great that if you study mathematics also, so a lot of people can take advantage of your knowledge. So that was the motive behind my a master degree for mathematics. And of course, life, it all goes by challenge, and you must accept them, and you must not give up. That's the only a motivational quote. If I say for my near and dear, I say just don't give up, go ahead. The moment you don't give up, you are a successful person. Uh, if not now, at least in the future, just don't give up.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I think anyone in the world, no matter your struggles, as I always say, making sure you have, the courage and the strength to continue and never giving up is the most important thing. So, yeah. And please, introduce yourself a little in Pashto if you would as well.
افغان د موږ نننی پروګرام بعضې غواړم چې اقتصادي مکتبونه تاسو ته تشریح کړم. البته اکثره موضوع به په انګلیسي، خو زه به بیا هم کوشش وکړم په پښتو ژبه، په دري ژبه هم یو څه معلومات تاسو ته وړاندې کړم چې تاسو وکړئ شئ د دغه معلوماتو څخه یو څه ګټه استفاده کړئ وکړئ.
Thank you. Okay, let me go ahead and share the next slide so we can find out the topic. So now you want to talk kind of a little bit about, a short history of economy and the different types of lifestyles and systems.
Yeah. As we all know, when it comes to the knowledge, when it comes to science or any other branch of knowledge, they all have a history. They all have a beginning. And also economy also. If we have a look to the other branches of knowledge or science subjects, for example, when it comes to chemistry, we all know that the father of chemistry is Anton Lavoisier, a French scholar, or some people say that Jabir ibn Hayyan, an Arab scholar, is the father of chemistry. Why? Because they put a lot of efforts on that. That's why they get this title. And when it comes to the biology, Aristotle is the father of biology. Because what he did in biology, that's tremendous, a good job. And there are other branches also. For example, when it comes to the medical, Hippocrates is the father of medical. Why? Because he did a lot for community, for people. That's why he nominated by most of the scholars as father of medical. Of course, economy also have people that they did a really good job, and we have two of them that in the next slide I will explain and talk about them, that who are they and what they have did. So, and when I will say a bit this in Pashto also, څرنګه ستاسو پوهیږئ د هر نالج یا د هر علم یا د هر ساينس په یو شبهې کې که موږ لاړ شو نو دا مختلف خلک پکې لري چې دې کې کار کړی خدمات یې کړی د دې مثال په ډول په کیمیا کې که موږ وګورو انتون لاوازیا او یا هم جابر ابن حیان د کیمیا د پلار په حیث پیژندل شوی ده چې بعضې خلک انتون لاوازیا فرانسوی عالم د کیمیا د پلار په حیث پیژني او بعضې هم جابر ابن حیان ځکه هغوی زیات خدمات کړي دي په کیمیا کې چې د انتون لاوازیا یو مثال ورکړمه اکسیجن یې ونوموه او دغه رقم نور علومو کې هم د مثال په ډول په طبابت کې موږ هیپوکرات د مثلا د طبابت پلار پایس پیژنو ځکه زیات خدمات کړي دي کله چې بیولوژي ته راځي موږ وایو چې ارسطو د بیولوژي پلار ده ځکه زیات خدمات کړي دي دغه رقم په اقتصاد کې یا په اکونومي کې هم موږ د اقتصاد پلارونه یا پلار لرو هغه دې له خاطره چې په دوه مختلفو زمانونو کې کار کړی ده چې زه به په خپل آینده سلاید کې د هغوی باره کې تاسو ته لږ ذره معلومات ورکړم. So we will go to the next slide.
Yeah, so now we'll talk about two famous scholars that you thought were important to talk about in regards to economics, Adam Smith and Paul Samuelson. So I just wrote a couple important things about them, and then I'll let you talk more in depth. Adam Smith was the founder of economics, and he was from Scotland in the 18th century, and he wrote The Wealth of Nations, which is a very important book. Anyone in business, I would suggest reading it. It talks about, free markets, assembly line production, and GDP, and why this is important for economics. And then also you wanted to talk about Paul Samuelson, a Nobel Prize winner of economics, and his main theories and points as well.
So when it comes to the economy, the co-founder of economy or the main person, the title goes to the Adam Smith, and he is known as the father of economy. Why? Because he put a lot of efforts, and he was a scholar when it comes to these things, and he was the expert in this field. And he's also known as the father of capitalism, and he brought a lot of changes on his time, and he wrote different books. So that's why Adam Smith is known as the father of economy. But in modern or today's economy, there is another gentleman by name Paul Samuelson. He's American, and Adam Smith, he's Scottish. So Paul Samuelson, he put a new force on economy and especially math analysis, and that's why he won the Nobel Prize, and also he was appreciated by the Kingdom of Sweden because of all his efforts and good things he did for economy. That's why Paul Samuelson, also known as the father of new economy or the father of economy. کله چې اقتصاد ته راځي دوه شخصیتونه د اقتصاد د پلار پایس پیژندل شوي دي. یو یې آدم سمیت ده چې هغه سکاټلنډی ده او اقتصاد لپاره یې زښته زیات کومک کړی ده، بنیادي تغییرات یې پکې راوړي دي. د فیوډالیزم نه دې خواته چې څومره خدمات په اقتصاد کې کړی ده هغه د آدم سمیت په نامه نومول شوی ده، او د دې له خاطره دې دا لقب اخیستی ده چې د اقتصاد د پلار په نامه ونومول شي. اما څرنګه چې هر علم ارتقا کوي مخته ځي، نو دې له خاطره یو بل شخصیت هم د اقتصاد د پلار په نام په حیث پیژندل شوی ده چې د هغې نوم پال سامیلسون ده، یا هم موږ ورته ویلی شو پاولوس سامیلسون. امریکایي عالم ده چې په متنالیز کې زیات خدمات کړي دي د اقتصاد په رشته کې، نو د دې له خاطره دغه ته هم دا لقب ورکول شوی ده. او پال سامیلسون ته د سویډن د شاهي دولت لخوا هم جوایز ورکړل شوي دي، او دا امریکایی ده او د نوبل جایزه هم په خپل مسلک کې ګټلی ده. یو امریکایی عالم ده. فکر کوم چې دغه معلومات دغه شخصیتو لپاره کافي ده. So we will go to the next slide, what we have next.
Yeah, so now I know you wanted to talk about, the three main types of economies. So please go ahead and tell us more about, capitalism, socialism, communism, and the types of models.
Today I will be talking simply when it comes to these three different models, because mostly people, it's very hard for them to get it. They can't get a main idea of capitalism, socialism, or communism, or any other ism when it comes to the economy. But we know that today world is dominated by these two schools, which is capitalism and socialism. So I will talk about these two. First thing that people should consider, or they should know, that capitalism, socialism, or communism, they are political models first. Secondly, they are economical models. That's what people should know, that it was all based, or it was all created by a political models or by political schools. That's the fundamental thing that they should know. Then they work on the economic parts of it that think about people, and that's why they created different schools which today is known as capitalism or socialism or communism, which communism and socialism, they have a close relationship that I will give a bit information when it comes to the slides. And اوس غواړم چې تاسو ته د کپیټالیزم، سوشلیزم او هم د کمیونیزم په باره کې لږ معلومات تاسو ته وړاندې کړم. کپیټالیزم یا پانګوالی نظام ده او سوشلیزم د سرمایه‌داري نظام ده او هم د اجتماعي نظام هغه او کمیونیزم هم د کمیونیزم په ارتباط کې ده. هغه دوستان باید زه غواړم چې تاسو ته معلومات دومره ساده او مشعره بیان کړم چې تاسو کله هم د دغه مکتبونو نومونه اخلئ، تاسو ته یو معلومات په لاس راسي چې وخت چې وایو موږ پانګوالی نظام یا سوشلیزم یا هم د کمیونیزم، نو دا څه رقم ځوان خلک پکې تیري په دې نظامو کې او ځوان څومره اسانه ده، څه خوبیانې لري څه بدیانې لري. دا به زه تاسو ته په دغه مکتبونو کې په ډېر ساده ژبه تاسو ته تشریح کړم چې تاسو یو څه معلومات دغه مکتبونو باره کې په لاس راوړئ. So we will go to the other slides that I can provide a bit information for people. Yeah. Now capitalism. Two things are most important in capitalism. One is products and services, or محصولات or خدمتونه. So products and services. Before I give a bit information about products and services, I will say when it comes to the capitalism, the government has a secondary rule when it comes to the products, when it comes to the ownership and all others. Because in capitalism, private sectors and people have the major role and have the first role. And it all controlled by private sectors and people. That's why products and services is one of the main idea or one of the main principle in capitalism. What is the pros of capitalism? They are amazingly productive. When we search, when we learn, we always know that capitalism has pros in productive compared to all other schools that we know in economy. د پانګوالي په نظام کې مخکې له دې نه چې تاسو ته د هغې خصوصیات یا د هغې مشخصات تاسو ته تشریح کړم، زه به تاسو ته ووایم چې د پانګوالي نظام کې دولت دومینای رول لري. اول رول د خلکو او د خصوصي سکتورونو ده، ځکه دوی په دغه کې قدرت لري، دوی په دغه کې صلاحیت لري او ټول خدمات چې خلکو ته ارائه کیږي د شخصي سکتورو لخوا او همچنان د اشخاصو لخوا خلکو ته وړاندې کیږي. د پانګوالي نظام خوبي یا فایده یا ګټه یې دا ده چې هغه ډېر پروډکټیو ده یا زیات هم تولیدات هغه کوي. د دې تولیداتو حساب زیات ده نسبت د نورو مکتبونو څخه چې په اقتصاد کې موږ پیژنو. So it was a bit information when it comes to the capitalism, what's capitalism and what they provide.
Yes, I agree with that as well. I currently live in, go ahead and mute yourself when you can. Basically, I live in the US as well with capitalism as the major economic way that our lifestyle is. And I agree, if you have an amazing idea, if you can't create it into like a product or a specific service, then no one will invest in you. No one will see why your idea is valuable or important. So if anyone's thinking about making something and coming to the US or any type of capitalistic economy or country, make sure what you are creating has some value to the people within that country. If there's no value for it, then no one will buy or invest or even promote you. And it's important to know that you'll usually have to build yourself up from the bottom. The government will have small loans that they give out, as well as the local states as well. But you yourself will have to try and provide as much investment personally, as well as find other investors outside, and that can be very difficult. So I think, that's something a lot of people need to be aware of if they want to create a business in a country like America.
Yeah, That's what I think. It's one of the pros because innovations and products. It's amazing when it comes to the capitalism. We cannot compare the innovations of capitalism with socialism because innovations in capitalism is in a high rate, and that's why they have enough entrepreneurs for capitalism, and they provide situation for them.
So now I know you have kind of like a question, something thought-provoking for the audience. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Okay, so your question was, how can you define someone as a capitalist or a socialist? For example, specific like religious figures.
It's something that most people should know, because especially when it comes to the election, a lot of candidates, they try to get some credit because of labeling some religious figures as a capitalist or as a socialist. When we read, when we learn in theology, there is not a single religious figure that we can label them as a capitalist or as a socialist. Those religious figures, they were just against the the system of that people that he was living in. So we cannot label a religious figure as a capitalist or as a socialist, because when we read their books, when we pay attention to them, those people, they were just against the system of that people that he was living. And those religious figures, they always try to change that. They didn't bring capitalism or socialism or any other ism to their people. They were just against the system of that people or that area. That is it. So it's election. Don't get tricked by some candidates that, okay, we know that that religious figure was capitalist, so you should vote for me, or that is a socialist, you should vote for me. So that's all just the trick of these candidates. There is not a single religious figures when it comes to the capitalism or socialism, because they were just against of the system of that people that they were living. So کله چې په ریلیجیوس فیګورس ته یا هم په دینی هغو ته راځي، موږ نشو کولی چې هیڅ کوم دینی رهبر د کپیټالیست یا د پانګوالي نظام او یا هم د سوشیالیزم نظام خوښونکی وبلو. کله هم چې موږ په ادیانو یا مقایسې ادیانو کې موږ لولو، ټول هغه دینی شخصیتونه یا فیګورونه چې دي، هغوی د برحال نظام په وخت کې هغوی د دې سره مخالفت درلوده او هغوی غوښتل چې د دغه نظام کې تغییرات راوړي. نو چون اوس انتخابات اکثره هغه کېږي، بعضې کاندیدان غواړي چې ځان لپاره کریډیټ واخلي او ووایي چې ګورئ فلانکی د موږ رهبر ده، د موږ دیني رهبر ده، هغه کپیټالیست ده یا هغه سوشیالیست ده، نو تاسو ما ته رایه راکړئ چې زه هم په دې هغه کې تاسو ته کومک وکړم. دا هغه څه ده چې خلک باید پوه سي چې داسې کوم دیني رهبر نشته چې هغې خاص کوم نظام لپاره کار کړي، بلکې ټول دیني شخصیتونه چې دي هغوی د خپل د زمانې د نظام په خلاف ول او هغې د بهتروالي لپاره یا ښه والي لپاره کار کړی دی.
Okay, so now we'll go ahead and talk about supply and demand. So let me share that slide real quick. Okay, and we are here.
So when it comes to the capitalism, there is another process of it. It's supply and demand. تحويلية وغفتنا. Supply and demand, it's also based on the private sectors, because what people demand in the private sector, they supply for that. And it should not be always that what they demand, it should be good, but what's the process in this, that whatever they demand, they can supply it and they can bring it. So that's also innovation or productivity when it comes to the capitalism. And you can only find this in capitalist or in capitalism systems, not on any other systems that we know in economy. So it's one of the advantage of capitalism, that there is supply and demand system, and you own it, and you can put a price for that, and you have a choice for that, and no one can interfere on that. So that's another advantage of capitalism.
Will you also translate that in Pashto as well?
So پانګوالي نظام کې موږ خوبیانې لرو او هغه یو دا ده تحویلي او غوښتنه. ځکه تحویلي او غوښتنه تنها په پانګوالي نظام کې ده. خلک څه غواړي، شخصي او یا هم شخصي سکتورونه او یا هم افراد دوی لپاره څه کوي، تحویلوي، دوی لپاره یې وړاندې کوي. دا سیستم کې خوبي دا ده چې ته خپله د خپل جنس باندې ته حق لرې، ته خپل ورته قیمت ږدی سې او څوک په دې کې مداخلت نشي کولی. هر قیمت چې ته غواړې ته پې کېښودی سې او ته کولی سې چې هر څه وغواړې جامې لپاره وړاندې کړې. خو د دې خوبي دا ده چې ته باید هغه څه وړاندې کړې چې څه د خلکو غوښتنې وي. نو دا خوبي موږ کولی شو یوازې د پانګوالي په نظام کې موږ په لاس راوړو.
Okay, so now you want to talk also kind of about, there's always a lot of positives to various types of economy, especially in capitalism, but at the same time, there's, negatives that can occur. So there's a little cartoon that you wanted to show and talk more about, the consequences as well as the pros to the capitalism.
Yeah, I would like to talk about that also. So when it comes to the capitalism, there is, it has advantage and it has a disadvantage. I have said a few advantage of that. Now I will talk about disadvantage that. Ignoring the suffering of workers, that is one of the main cons of capitalism that we have witnessed, because they ignore how the workers suffer for them. And it should not be like, the suffering should not be in capitalism country. They could be anywhere on the world from where they get their products, because they don't pay attention for their workers suffering. And we have witnessed a lot when it comes to the capitalism and workers, how they suffer. We have witnessed a lot that I will bring a few samples in the future, and I will give a bit information that people should know if capitalism has advantage. These are the cons or disadvantage of that. هر نظام خپل ښهوالی او بدوالی دی. د پانګوالۍ نظام یو له غدترینو خرابیانو څخه یا منفي اړخونو څخه هغه دا ده چې هغوی د خپل د کارکوونکو زحمتونه یا هغوی کوم د موضوع څخه چې سفر کوي یا ناخوالی چې ده هغوی مد نظر کې نه نیسي. په پانګوالۍ نظام کې د تاریخ د شروع څخه تر ننه پورې موږ د مختلفو حادثاتو شاهدان یاستو چې هغوی د پانګوالۍ د نظام قرباني شوي دي. قربانیان اکثره غریب خلک دي چې د پانګوالۍ د نظام ته قرباني ورکړې ده. زه به دا بیا په آینده کې په نورو سلاید شوګانو کې تاسو ته یو څه نور معلومات هم ورکړم او د خپل همکارې نظر به هم په دې اړه واورم.
Awesome. Yeah, so now we'll go ahead and talk kind of about, modern day issues. I know you wanted to talk about, the upcoming election here in America and how the election can affect the economy and how the economy can affect the election as well.
Right, of capitalism, when it comes to the capitalism, of course, especially currently in America, there is election and we have two main candidates, which is Trump and Biden in USA. Of course, Trump trying to get the support of rich people, and that's why he mentioned a lot about GPD, that I will give information about it later. He trying to broadcast that a lot. And then we have another person which is the opposite of Trump, and it's Joe Biden, and he more trying to get the votes of middle class people and poor people. Why? Because it's election and it's a capitalism system. So you should use your power or your knowledge, or you must have your own followers, and you must catch their eyes. Trump, since he's a businessman, he trying to get the support of rich people. That's why he more talk about economy. So and when it comes to Joe Biden, he trying to get attention of poor people, that look, I will provide this, I will provide that for you people. So these are two things when it comes to the capitalism and when it comes to the candidate. But when it comes to the capitalism, you have always choice and you can choose that which is a good option for you. And always in capitalism, the rich people will do anything to get rich, and poor people will get any job just so they can survive. It's one of the cons or disadvantage of capitalism. غواړم چې دا په پښتو کې هم تاسو ته معلومات درکړم. څرنګه چې د پانګوالي نظام ما یو بل منفي اړخ هم تاسو ته بیان کړ، نو زه به یو بل منفي اړخ هم تاسو ته بیان کړم. هغه دا ده چې پانګوالي نظام کې پیسه‌دار خپل ټول کوشش کوي چې زیات پیسې په لاس راوړي، او غریب حاضر ده هره وظیفه وکړي چې تر هغو هغه ځان لپاره یو رزق او روزي پیدا کړي. اما چون نن په پانګوالي نظام کې خاصتا په امریکا کې انتخابات دي، نو دوه کاندیدیت دي چې ټرمپ دا او جو بایدن دا. ټرمپ همیشه کوشش کوي چې خپل یو بزنسمین دا غواړي د پیسه‌دارو خلکو رای یا سپورټ یا حمایت ځان ته راوړي. همیشه په خپل انتخاباتو کې د جی پی ډي خبرې کوي او نور اقتصادي مسایل وړاندې کوي، چون دغه مسلک ده، په دغه فیلډ کې ډېر کار کړی، تجربه لري. نو دې له خاطره دا غواړي چې د پیسه‌دارو خلکو حمایت ځان ته واخلي، تر هغو خپل کمپاین په خپل مخ ته ویسي. اما له بل اړخه موږ جو بایدن لرو چې هغه همیشه کوشش کوي چې د غریبو خلکو یا هم د میډل کلاس خلکو رای ځان ته واخلي، چون د هغوی تعداد هم زیات ده، او غواړي چې په یو طریق نه یو طریق د دغه کپیټالیزم په نظام کې په اقتصادي مسایلو وړاندې کولو ته د هغې خلکو رای ځان ته یو رقم باندې وړاندې کړي. اما د کپیټالیزم په نظام کې ته خپله فکر کوای چې وګوري چې کوم یو ښه کاندیدیت دی هغه ده، او چې ته په هغې ته رایه ورکړې. نو دغه ما غوښته چې د چون د انتخاباتو وخت ده او کپیټالیزم نظام کې ده او د موږ عنوان هم کپیټالیزم ده، ما د یو څه معلومات به دې باره کې هم تاسو ته معلومات درکړم. بیا هم تاسو ته وایم د پانګوالي نظام یا د کپیټالیزم یو منفي اړخ دا ده چې پیسه‌دار حاضر ده چې هر کار وکړي چې پیسې زیات شي، سرمایه زیات شي، او غریب حاضر ده چې هر کار وکړي چې هغه یو مقدار پیسې ځان ته په لاس راوړي. چې دا به بیا په نورو سلایډونو کې هم تاسو ته د دې په اړه معلومات ورکړم.
So now we'll go ahead and talk about how first world countries that follow capitalism affect, other countries, whether it's second or third world countries.
So once again, I will mention about another concept of capitalism. It's only in capitalism. I can give one example, but there are enormous examples of that I will ask you about it if you have heard about it. Because we know Walmart, it's one of the famous company or brand in capitalism system, and their workers have been killed, tortured, and misused in different countries, especially in Bangladesh. More than 1,000 children died during working because of there was not a good place so they can work. Even there was some misuses, and that was the reason. That's another concept of capitalism, that they really don't care about their workers. So I think you may have heard more about it. If you can elaborate if you have heard something like that, because there was another controversial about Beyonce and her products that she was misusing, or other people were a lot suffering due to her products. And I think it's very common. And when it comes to the capitalism and in which country that you live, maybe you have heard a lot. If you can provide us with one example how people are suffering, I mean workers.
Yeah, so we did a lot of case studies when I was doing my management degree at the University of Utah. And I know one of the examples we had was when Chinese workers who were working for Apple factories would try and commit suicide because of the fact that they would work, maybe 15, 16 hours a day. And the conditions were very harsh, no air conditioning, very dark, and they weren't paid a lot. And so that became, very big in the news and the media. And I think over the past 20 years, really the concept of like CSR, corporate social responsibility, has gained and is something that's going to be beneficial, because now companies, especially big multinational ones, are expected to provide and benefit not only their employees, but as well as their communities around them by giving back in some way, volunteering, giving free services or products, giving to charities. So I hope with, the upcoming generations, the more people are involved with the products and services, learning about the background of the company, learning about their values, learning about their ethics, is the way we can support companies that are doing a good service, like Patagonia. They're making sure to create workshops that are very sustainable, paying their foreign employees a good wage that works for that type of economy, as well as providing jobs here in the US and providing products that are long lasting and durable. That kind of brand recognition and loyalty is what will allow a company like that to continually grow. Whereas other companies that are continuing to, hurt people or create bad media coverage, in the end, it will hurt them both profit-wise as well as, socially, people will not want to buy their products.
That was also a good example, especially Apple, and we have heard a lot, and there are other companies also, but I think that's enough. I will also say about that I work as a UNHCR for UNHCR, and they did broad changes compared to past. They brought a lot of changes, and I do hope that they keep this work for any other company which is located or based on capitalism system, so they can bring these changes for the people, so the workers suffer less and they get the advantage of what they are really doing. Because I hope it brings change, but I think changes will be very less. So and yeah, کله چې پانګوالي نظام کې خوبیانې لري نو دا هم منفي اړخونه لري. یو بل منفي اړخ به تاسو ته دا وایم چې هغوی خپل کارکوونکي په څه شکل چې باید هغوی ته معاش ورکړل شي یا په کوم شکل باندې چې د هغوی انساني حقوق باید داسې نه ادا کیږي. چې غټ مثال باید د یو والمارت ورکړم چې دا د پانګوالي نظام یو غټترین شرکتونو څخه ده چې په هغې کې خاصتا د دوی د فابریکه چې ده په بنګلادیش کې ده، په زرهاو ماشومان مړه شول د دې له خاطره چې د دوی فابریکه اور واخیسته او د دوی لپاره مناسب ځای نه و چې دوی هلته کار وکړي، او همچنان داسې نور هم مسایل ول چې بعضې خلکو نه جنسي استفادې وشولې د ښځو څخه او دغه رقم نور داسې مشکلات لري د پانګوالي نظام کې، ځکه چې کارکوونکو لپاره هغه توجه یا هغه حقوق چې باید وی لري نه کېږي. چې د ما همکار هم د اپل د کمپنۍ مثال ورکړ، یو چینایي یې غوښته ځان خودکشي وکړي، ځکه د اپل کمپنۍ ټول پروډکټ هغې په چین کې جوړیږي او د هغوی کارکوونکي تر 15-16 ساعتونو پورې کار کوي، اما د هغوی معاش هم ډېر ناچیز ده او د هغوی هغه د استوګنې ځای یا هغوی د کار کولو ځای هم زښته خرابه ده، چې حتی بعضې وخت د کارکوونکو د مرګ دلیل یا سبب هم کېدلی شي. نو دغه یو د پانګوالي نظام یو له بل منفي اړخونو څخه ده چې غریب لپاره یا کارکوونکو لپاره هغه توجه چې باید وشي نه کېږي. So I think it will be enough for people that they should know the concept of capitalism. And I think it's quite famous when it comes to the cons of capitalism. This one is more familiar and people heard a lot about it. We just elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. So now we'll go ahead and move on to socialism, which is kind of more familiar with you compared to me because you live in Sweden, which is a socialist type of economy and country.
So I think the information that we provided in capitalism, that would be enough. And now we jump into the socialism, the country that I live. Of course, I will talk about it more in next slides or on other slides. When it comes to the socialism, it's more based on, we say that in capitalism, the government has secondary role, but it's opposite in socialism. The government has the main role. It has all control over the companies, over the products, over almost everything. So that's the reason socialism start. That's why socialism get worked, and that's why we have two different systems. Because those people that they were living in capitalism system, or those people that they were against the capitalism system, they created another system, which we know today as socialism. And when it comes to the socialism, it has a lot of scholars that they work on it, but mainly what's the most famous one of them is Karl Marx, is known as, when it comes to the socialism, the first picture come to the people image, it's Karl Marx. He worked a lot in socialism and of course in other perspective also. So socialism, it's more about people, social life, equality, and also uh, more thinking about, of course, it's a political model, but it's economical model also that it thinks more about equality of people. There is there is not much innovations, there is not much productive, there is not much rich people, but it always focus on the equality of different people, different societies. اوس د سوشلیزم نظام څرنګه چې هر مکتب یو مثبت او منفي اړخونه لري، دغه رقم د پانګوالي د نظام په خلاف موږ بل مکتب لرو، بل اقتصادي بل سیاسي مکتب لرو چې په نامه د سوسیالیزم ده. سوشلیزم مکتب هغه وخت رامنځته راغی چې کله د پانګوالي نظام منفي اړخونه زیات شول او خلکو نور برداشت د نظام نه سوی کوی، نو بعضې خلک پورته شول، یو بل سیاسي مکتب او بل اقتصادي مکتب یې رامنځته کړ چې نن یې موږ د سوشلیزم په نامه پیژنو. او کله هم چې موږ لفظ د سوشلیزم اورو، نو اکثره د خلکو اذهانو ته د یو تاریخي څهرې په نامه د کارل مارکس د دې څهره د خلکو ذهنونو ته راځي، ځکه چې دا یو بنیادي کارونو څخه په سوشلیزم ته کړی ده، چې د هغې باره کې به موږ آینده یو څه نور معلومات په راتلونکي سلایډونو کې ورکړو، او همچنان په کوم ملک کې چې زه ژوند کوم د هغې خصوصیات به زه تاسو ته بیان کړم له نورو نظامونو سره. نو هغه به موږ په آینده سلایډ کې سره وګورو.
Okay, so let me go ahead and share the slide with Karl Marx.
When it comes to the socialism, one of the main person, it's Karl Marx, and he worked a lot for socialism. And when it comes to the socialism, mostly people know Karl Marx, that he worked for it. And of course, when it comes to the election, when it comes to the politics, people don't bring the most famous figure for that, but they bring another person which live on that area. For example, nowadays in America, in elections, especially they bring Bernie Sanders as a socialist, because they're trying to get more votes, more attention that, look, we're living in a capitalism system, but this guy, Bernie Sanders, because he was one of the candidates, everyone, they bring him as a sample that if he get candidate, he is a socialist and he will destroy our government system. So of course, when it comes to the politics, they don't use a historical figure for that. They're trying to use a person which live on that society, and we're trying to bring change on the government system, so so the opposite party can get more votes by bringing his name. And we heard a lot and we saw a lot that in this elections, a lot of other candidates, they use Bernie Sanders as example that, look, he's socialist, he's socialist. It's like, so don't vote for him, vote for us, because we are not socialists. When it comes to the economy, when it comes to the politics, we should not consider this only as an economical model. It's also a political model that people trying to get advantage of these figures or these candidates and these people. نو غواړم چې تاسو ته د سوشلیزم په نظام باره کې یو بل معلومات هم درکړم. چې د مثال په ډول نن په امریکا کې انتخابات دي، او په دغه انتخاباتو کې که د پانګوالي نظام وي، نو دوی غواړي چې یو شخص مثال ورکړي. د مثال په ډول د امریکا په انتخاباتو کې چې امریکا د پانګوالي د نظام په اساس وړاندې ده، نو برني سندرز یو د کاندیداتو څخه دوی مثال ته راوړي. نو دې له خاطره هغوی دا مثال راوړي، ځکه چې خلک باید پوه سي چې ګورئ تاسو دې برني سندرز ته رایه مه ورکوئ، ځکه دا یو سوشلیست ده. موږ ته رایه ورکوئ چې موږ وکړی شو تاسو ته په دغه نظام کې قایم پاتې شو، موږ وکړی شو د دغه برخاله نظام تر لاندې تاسو ته کومک وکړی شو. نو دا هم تاسو ته بیا هم وایم چې کله هم په مکتبونو کې راځي، تاسو باید په دې فکر ونه کړئ چې دا مثلا یو تنها یو اقتصادي مکتب، بلکې دا یو سیاسي مکتب اول ده، بیا اقتصادي مکتب ده. چې زه به په دې باره کې د نورو علماو د نورو جهاني څیرو مثالونه به تاسو ته وړاندې کړم.
Okay, so now we'll go on to Carl Sagan. So let me go ahead and show that video that we wanted to share real quick.
But are you a socialist?
I'm not sure what a socialist is,
Well,
but I believe that the government has a responsibility to care for the people. And I'm not talking about dole. I'm talking about making people self-reliant, people able to take care of themselves. There are countries which are perfectly able to do that. The United States is an extremely rich country. It's perfectly able to do that. It chooses not to. It chooses to have homeless people. We are 19th in the world in infant mortality. 18 other countries save the lives of their babies better than we. How come? They just spend more money on it. They care about their babies more than we care about ours. I think it's a disgrace. And this country has vast wealth. You just look at what something like Star Wars, the money spent on Star Wars, already spent $20 billion on it. If these guys are permitted to go ahead, they will spend $1 trillion on Star Wars. Think of what that money could be used for, to educate, to help, to bring people up to a sense of self-confidence, to improve not just the happiness of people in America, but their economic standing, to improve the competitiveness of the United States compared to other countries. We are using money for the wrong stuff.
So I hope that was a nice clip to kind of be introduced to Carl Sagan, and I'll let Mr. Masood go ahead and continue on.
Yeah, I call him a philosopher, and Carl Sagan is one of my favorite theoretical physicists. I have watched a lot of his interviews, a lot of his ideas, so I call him more philosopher than theoretical physicist. And he lived in a capitalist system, but his idea, the way of thinking, and he was more fond of socialism, because he clearly stated that there are 18 other countries which is not richer than us, but the pupil life is so good, and they're trying to have equality, but we're trying to choose more homeless people. He was trying to say another concept, capitalism, while he was living in capitalism system, and he was trying to give a credit for socialism, because socialism is more thinking about people equal life, so that they have a better life system. And he gave example of Scandinavian countries, especially in today world in different rankings. We know that Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, they are on the top always, because their life system is more mixed socialism, that I will give information about it a little bit more later, because he was trying to say that we should think about people's life, not money. So he was a fond of socialism, and that's what he was trying to point out. Because it's also one of a bit controversial if you live in a capitalism country, but and they ask you, are you a socialist? Somehow they're trying to degrade you or give you less credit for that. So he simply explained that we should more think about people's life, that they have an equal life, and we have a better life system, and we should try to have a less homeless. Even though America is one of the richest country, but the homeless, when it comes to the life system, it's not on the top, but they are on 18th. Like the interview was very old, but of course, it's also not on top still, because socialism or socialist country, they have a better life system when it comes to the other perspective. نو زه همیشه د انسان ته زه غواړم چې زه ورته فلسفر وایم، او در حال کې دا یو تخیلي فیزیک ده. کارل سیګن ډېر یو مشهوره څیره ده، او د هغې د خبرو څخه خوند اخلم. د دې څخه سوال کوي چې آیا ته یو سوشلیست یې یا که څنګه؟ نو دا ورته په ډېره ساده ژبه وایي چې موږ ګوره په امریکا کې ژوند کوو، د موږ اقتصاد ډېر قوي ده، د دې په ځای چې موږ ښه ژوند ولرو، موږ هوملس یا هغه اشخاص انتخابو غواړو چې ولرو چې کورونه نه لري، بې خانمان هم چې ورته وایي. نو هغه غواړي خپله توجه یا خپل پوینټ په دې باره کې ووایي چې ګورئ دغه نظام کې دومره کمبودیانې دي، در حاله کې په سوشلیزم کنټري کې دلته ډېر خلک دي چې ډېر یو مرفوعه یو ډېر آرامه ژوند لري سره، او امریکا یې اتلسم پړاو کې قرار ورکړ چې ګورې امریکا په اتلسمه درجه کې ده، او په سوشلیزم کنټري کې یا په ممالکو کې د خلکو ژوند ډېر ښه ده. د هغه دوران څخه تر ننه پورې موږ په مختلفو رانکینګونو کې یا په درجه بندي کې موږ ګورو هغه ممالک چې سوشلیزم پکې تطبیق کېږي، هغې کېږي د ژوند سیستم نسبت د پانګوالي نظام څخه ډېر ښه ده. چې د دې مشهورترین څوک ده؟ کوم دي؟ ډنمارک ده، ناروې ده، سویډن ده، فنلند ده. چې همیشه کله چې د ژوند په سیستم کې راځي، نو دغه ممالک لومړی، دوم، درېیم، څلورم یا هم په بهترینو درجه بندیو کې راځي. چې دې غوښته فقط دغه ووایي چې موږ باید د پیسو په باره کې ډېر فکر ونه کړو، بلکې د خلکو د اجتماعي ژوند د لوړولو لپاره یا د عادي ژوند لرلو لپاره باید موږ توجه وکړو.
So now we'll go ahead and talk about the next slide, which is, ideology and the importance of it, and that even if a specific ideology is something that you are well versed in or understand because it's part of your society, that doesn't mean it's always the one you need to follow exactly.
So when it comes to ideology, my main point is that you should never choose one system, or you should never prefer one system over another one. Why? Because we have different ideology. For example, when it comes to the economical models, capitalism or socialism, they cannot dominate the world, and they can never dominate the world. From the history up to now, there is not a single country which is dominant by one system and they succeeded, either if it is capitalism or if it is socialism, because none of them succeeded successfully in all perspectives. That is why we should think about it, that we should have a mixed system. And what are the best examples? The best examples, according to ranking, almost for a decade, those countries, those ideology that they mix their system, they get the high position. For example, when it comes to the Finland, when it comes to the Norway, when it comes to the Sweden, although they are a socialist country, but it's mixed. It's mixed with capitalism. That's why they are so much successful. The life system is so much good compared to the others. Why? Because you should never continue, you should never stand by one ideology. You should have a different ideology and you should mix it just so you can provide a good life system for the people. For if you are a president or if you are a king or whatever system is, you should choose, you should bring another system, you should mix it so you can provide a good life system. Because when it comes to the capitalism, mostly people think, America, rich country, and they bring another countries, for example, Switzerland, Hong Kong, or other countries. But they forget that if America is one of the richest country, it's based on capitalism. They forget that even America's system is not 100% capitalism. It is mixed capitalism. This is what you should know, because there are other countries also. For example, Tanzania, Kyrgyzstan, they are capitalist system and they are the poorest country on the world. So what's the best system? You should mix it so you can bring change on your society. There is not a single ideology or economical system that you can demonstrate other better than others. So you should mix it so people can have a better life system. That's what more important when it comes to the different ideas. کله چې په اقتصادي مکتبونو کې یا په سیاسي فکرونو کې راځي، هیڅ کله هم یو مکتب نسی کوي چې کامیاب اوسیږي. د مثال په ډول کله هم چې تاسو د پانګوالۍ نظام نوم اورئ، نو تاسو ته د امریکا خیال په ذهن کې مرازي چې والا زیاتې پیسې دي یا زیات پیسه‌دار ملک دغه ده، اما په یا د سویزرلند یا د هانګ کانګ، اما تاسو لیاده باسئ چې د امریکا سیستم چې ده مکمل یا خالص پانګوالي سیستم نه ده، بلکې دا مخلوط کړی ده، دا مکس کړی ده له نور کپټالیزم سره، چې دا یو ښه ځوان خلکو لپاره یې راکړي. که تاسو په دې فکر کوئ چې مثلا سویزرلند کپټالیزم ده نو د خلکو ځوان ښه ده، نو بیا تاسو ته به زه د قرغستان یا د تانزانیا یا د ټولو هغه غریبو ممالکو کې چې د دنیا نه غریبترین ممالک دي، چې مثال تانزانیا یا قرغستان موږ ورکوی شو، هغه په پانګوالي نظام کې ده او خلک زښته زیات غریب دي. نو موږ نشو کوی چې یو ایډیالوژي یا یو مفکوره یا یو فکر هغه ډیر زیات کامیاب وګڼو، ځکه چې موږ په تاریخ کې د پرونه څخه تر ننه پورې په تاریخ کې موږ داسې یو پانګوالی یا د داسې یو اقتصادي مکتب نه لرو چې هغه کامیاب تیر شوی. همیشه بهترین غوره انتخاب څه ده؟ تاسو دا باید مکس کړئ. د مثال په ډول موږ د دنیا په طبقه بندي کې ګورو، هر کال هغه ممالک مخته دي چې د دوی مکس ده یا مخلوط نظام لري. د مثال په ډول ناروې، سویډن، فنلند یا دغه رقم نور ممالک سره د سوشلیزم دي، هغوی د پانګوالي نظام هم ورسره یو ځای کړی ده چې خلکو لپاره غوره ژوند انتخاب کړي. نو بهترین نظامونه هغه دي چې هغوی مخلوط نظامونه لري، سره خلکو لپاره ژوند سیستم یې ښه شي.
I definitely agree, you know, when we focus on just one type of ideology or one type of idea, we can become very narrow-minded and end up being stuck because we don't know, you know, other ways to get around our several problem, for example. And especially with our economy, we want to be open-minded because sometimes the solution that was acceptable, you know, 50 years ago or 100 years ago was important during that time frame. You know, the technology was different. The ability people were able to communicate with each other was different. How the government was structured and how the, you know, foreign relations with other countries in regards to, you know, tariffs or international trade has completely changed, and it will continue to change. So in any society, we need to continuously enhance ourselves. And the best way to do that is to take as many ideas that are available to us and mold them into the best and most productive and most complementary way for the society being led at that moment. And we need to focus on, giving benefits to the people, making sure people are healthy and happy, and that, there should be some kind of competition, especially with business. Having a competitive advantage is what allows one country to distinguish itself from another country, as well as allows, various types of companies to, be even more beneficial. If one country or one company has something or product or service that will, benefit an entire society, they should be put to the top because, they're someone who is benefiting and helping people. But at the same time, we don't want monopolies. We don't want one company being able to take over everything, or a government, having too much power and controlling people. For example, with pharmaceutical companies, you don't want a company who has just one type of medicine to give out to all types of people, because every person is different. Everyone needs a medication that deals with, the type of health, their type of, cultural background, their type of, metabolism, for example. So, I totally agree. We need to focus on the best for everyone. And the only way we can do that is by, making an interconnected web of ideas, of thoughts, of processes, of new mechanisms, creating a global outlook rather than just focusing on, one narrow party or one narrow company, because that's not gonna benefit anyone in the end, except for a very small amount of people.
Well, I totally agree with you, and that's why when it comes to the capitalism monopoly, or when it comes to the socialism, there is less invention, less motivation, and there is less choices. So in this point, I'm totally agree with you, because we must mix it. We must mix it so people can have a better life. This is what I believe, and this is, I think, yeah, this is, I think, everyone should think for people. We should not think only about ourselves, but we should think about in general. So how is the best way from economical perspective that we can provide for people? And that is that you should not be stand on one school, but you should mix it, and you should have a different way so you can provide a better life system. So I totally agree with you. There must be invention, there must be productivity, but it should not be a monopoly. So I agree with you, and that's a good point that people should know when it comes to which way they should choose.
So I always like to end my show kind of with like a last message of either, hope or advice. So, what are kind of your last, tips maybe for students, for young professionals or general professionals, as well as people who are learning about their economy, whether you live, in Afghanistan or Sweden or America?
Well, my last message will be, in life, never give up. Always try to choose and don't give up, because you don't know the next step maybe is the step that could change your life totally. And I can give you a lot of examples of historical figures, or currently Jack Ma, or the other guy which is so famous nowadays, the owner of Tesla, that now is trying to launch to the space. So don't give up. You don't know when your life will change. Don't give up. That is the only option that you have. Because the moment you trying to give up, ask yourself why you started. And for students, always try to study and be focused. Uh, yeah, and try to think more economically when it comes to the life, because this is how it will bring change into your life. And yeah, if anything I can do on that point, I will always be happy to help you on that and provide some help on that point.
Can you also just give kind of your experience within like the Swedish educational system, and talk about how, the professors and learning the language, and like anything for maybe people who in other countries would like to come study in Sweden or live there?
Yeah, I should talk about it before. but it's not late, of course. When it comes to the educational system, the country provides the best things for the students, different strategies, different ways for every level of students. How much you have studied, they evaluate your knowledge, your skills, and they put you on a certain category. And this is what I love most about Sweden, because they have a different category for different students, for their lifestyle. And when it comes to the helping, government is, they give priority for the students a lot, those who study, and they help them in every perspective, either economically and other like criteria they choose for them. And this is what I love about Sweden the most, because they choose different strategies for different students. And if you have this system, then you can have a lot of successful students and different methods. Of course, this is what I like about Sweden, because they choose different ways for different students. For example, if you have studied up to 7th grade, if you studied your high school, if you have a university, they don't put all in one level. They try to provide different levels for different students and provide them with different teachers in different places. That's what I love the most about Sweden and their educational system for students and of course for teachers.
Okay, I just wanted to say, Dara Manana Shah Zile Sahak. I really appreciate, your time today. If you just want to say, final khudafis in English, Pashto, and Swedish, and Dari, if you want.
My pleasure. It was nice talking to you, and through this I could provide a bit information for the viewers of Bahartv. په اخره کې تاسو ټول څخه ډیره زیاته مننه کوم، سپیشل خاصتا د ښاغلي اسما څخه چې ما وکړای شوی له دغه طریقه خپل دوستانو ته لیدونکو ته خاصتا د بهار تلویزیون یا مختلف تلویزیونو کې دا براډکاسټ کیږي چې د دې پروګرام څخه خوند اخیستی یو څه زده کړي. سو تhank you so much. مننه، تشکر بسیار زیاد. خدا کنه که از برنامه ما مستفید شده باشین و تشکر میکنم از دوشیزه اسما، از همه دوستای دیگر که از این برنامه مستفید شده باشن. Existe jag kan säga tack så jättemycket för alla er att ni kunde tolerera oss, att ni kunde lyssna på oss, ni kunde titta på oss. Thank you, manana, tashakkur, tack så mycket.
Yeah, again, a last tashakkur. I hope everyone today found this very informative and understand, the basic fundamentals of both capitalism and socialism, a bit of the history of the important figures and how it impacts us both positively and negatively within our lives, no matter which country we're currently living in. So tashakkur to everyone. Tashakkur Masood again. I will go ahead and just play the song from the beginning, and then we will end our show for today. Office.
بهار تلویزیون د یووالي او پیوستون رښتینی غږ